Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy right here. This is the TuyaKnife Kingsman. First off, though, I want to thank my buddy Slicey Dicey. He actually sent this little guy along to me. Very, very cool little piece. I handled one of these guys at Blade Show. I thought, you know what, this could use a little bit more pocket time. I want to check one of these guys out, and he had bought one, so he offered to send it along. Thank you very, very much for that, Slicey. Next thing, let's do a size comparison. This is not a small knife. Here it is against your Ontario Rat number 2 and your Spyderco Delica. Yeah, move things along a little bit here. Yeah, not small, 100%. Here it is against your Spyderco PM2. So you can see in sharpened blade length, the difference isn't huge, but it's definitely up there. And then let's actually go ahead and measure the blade length real quick here. So we are coming in just over 3.5 inches. That bugs me a little bit, but nevertheless, that's the situation here. Next thing, what the heck is a TuyaKnife? Well, Tuya is a relatively new Chinese company, but they have a very nice American distributor, a guy named Dave. I talked to him of late. Nice person there. But nevertheless, it is a Chinese company. They seem to be a relatively small outfit and doing their own interesting work. I handled the Hive recently, and then I'm handling this guy, so there you go. That's a Tuya. So let's go on ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of this very interesting little knife right here. So on the good side, to start with, this has some very nice marbled carbon fiber bolsters. I kind of like the design of it is not unattractive, where you got these, holes up here, you got holes here, you got the carbon fiber hole in the back there. At some level, it is a very interesting, very strange design. It's not going to be for everybody, but at the same time, that is a joy. And these carbon fiber bolsters are actually very nice, because not only does it make it easier to flip, because most of the time your fingers are resting on the carbon fiber, not the lock bar, which means your lock bar tension doesn't get dialed up to 1,000 as a result. But nevertheless, that's definitely I like the bolsters very much. Next thing, this has been skeletonized a fair amount on the outside here, because they have put in a bunch of carbon fiber. They cut a bunch of holes in here. And so as a result, it is a relatively lightweight knife, even though the balance is fine. I'll throw it here on the scale. We will see this guy comes in at 3.54 ounces for just about 3.54 inches. Well, I don't have that exact decimal, but whatever. It's a lightweight knife, and so I do very much appreciate that. Then finally, on the good side, this guy has a very nice blade. It is a super thick tip, which is something you want to keep in mind, and that's a part of this grind, you can see. But it has a very interesting grind, because it comes down to a relatively thin bottom edge down here. It is made of M390. It has just a good shape overall, with some flat, some belly, and a strong tip over there. It's got a great sharpening choil. I mean, there's a lot to like about the blade on this guy. And so, to me at least, that's what's good here, is that it is a very nice blade, with an interesting grind overall. It is very lightweight, nice carbon fiber bolsters, and overall the design is pretty unique and interesting. On the great side to me, the action. Yeah, the action. It's a reliable flipper. 100% of the time deploys, no problem. The tent is good to go. And it has a very, very nice action. It is a drop-shotty sort of knife, par excellence. And so the action to me is 100% what's great. This is a very, very nice action. On the bad side, to start with, you may find yourself diagnosed with trypophobia, which is it's a proposed phobia of irregular patterns of holes. Things like lotus buds and things like that. For some reason, for some people, that can be bothersome. It is a fine thing for me. It doesn't bother me particularly, but I think it's going to probably be love it or hate it. I showed this to my wife, and she was just like, "What's with the holes? Does that serve a purpose?" No. Yeah, that's weird, no. And so, that's going to be a love it or hate it design touch for some, and it might actually scare some people, but hey, it is what it is. Next thing, the price on this guy. This is a $260 knife. Now, look, it's in the range, right? There are a lot of knives in this kind of a price, or this kind of a feature set around that area, but it does have to be on point, because the competition is very strong in that area, and so we'll talk about that in a second here. Next thing, the carbon fiber is good, but it's not perfect. We can see here, for instance, there are little gouges from time to time, little holes in the carbon fiber. There's a little ding right here. You can see, was screwed up by the screw driving, I suppose, right here. Again, you see the same thing back here. You also see little gaps from place to place along the edges here. There's a little bit of gapitude from time to time. I mean, overall, the carbon fiber is good, but it's not the most impressive carbon fiber ever. The inlay work is, a solid 90%. And so that's okay, but it's not amazing. Next thing, this does have that super thin tip. One thing to note is that this is not actually a zero grind. It has a separate bevel down at the edge here, so it's not going to be that hard to sharpen. But it it is definitely kind of a weird touch, and I don't know that it's going to win you all that much, although aesthetically speaking, it is kind of striking. Next thing, this definitely has a crud groove in the blade, meaning this whole area here. Now look, fullers are not something I'm super a fan of anyways, but this particularly has all of these various 90-degree edges. Imagine cleaning this out. All that this means is that if you cut some cheese with your pocket knife, you're going to have cheese in this for the next 2 weeks. Then you cut some oil, you're going to have cheese in your oil, etc. Cut an open oil bottle, that is, to make a funnel or something. Anyways, this is going to collect crud, and I just don't see it as a super helpful thing. And so there's that. Next thing, the clip on this guy is kind of unimpressive to me. I mean, the clip itself works fine. It's a nice, flexible clip. Thing is, it is a very shallow carry, and it is also on the wrong side of the knife, at least for my estimation. Because this means that the knife is, as it hugs the edge of your pocket, the knife is going to be kind of hanging off to this side, more into your pocket than not. Whereas most clips tend to hang the knife such that the knife is either centered, or the clip is centered on the knife, or at the very least, so it's over to the side there. This is just not a stellar clip in my estimation. It works, it's fine, I'm nitpicking here, but it's just, it's got some issues there. So I'm not a big fan of that. And then finally, unfortunately, this guy has some pretty substantial hot spots here, here, and here. And this just means that as you are opening the knife, as well as some hot spotting in this little area here on the edge, I mean, it's not the most ergonomic thing ever. And particularly for flipping, it just kind of, every time, it just digs into your hand a little bit. I'm just not a big fan of this little area. There's a reason this surface is usually smooth on pocket knives, and although you do have the lanyard hole, at least for me, it doesn't matter. And so every time you flip this guy, you get a little bit of a poke off of these guys, and I'm not necessarily a big fan of that. So, to me at least, that's the bad, is that it's got those hot spots in the back, the clip positioning isn't great, it's got the crud groove, super thick tip, some gaps in the carbon fiber, it's $260, and it may inspire trypophobia. On the ugly front, there's only one issue, and that is the exposed blade in the back here. This is very, very easy for me to touch. And this is not an edge I would want to shop in. Just flat out, this is a leave dull portion of the blade, and that's always ugly. This is what you get when you use relatively thick blade stock, thicker than you needed to use for a knife of this size, certainly, which, by the way, I could have also put in the bad, although the cutting geometry at the edge is thin enough that I gave it a pass. Nevertheless, it is very, very easy to cut yourself in the back part here if you have relatively small fingers. I am just not a fan of that at all. And so that is absolutely ugly. The knife should have either been a little wider to accommodate that, or you could have just made the bigger finger choil. I mean, go to a full finger choil, you wouldn't have a problem here. No, that's amateur hour. That's not okay. So, to me at least, that's what's ugly. You can cut yourself on the knife when closed, and that doesn't work. So, final conclusion, look, this is a fine knife. It's got a good action, good steel, good build. I can see a lot of folks loving it, being quite happy with it. I mean, honestly, it is a nice piece. I handled it at Blade Show. It's like, wow, that's really nice. 100%. The thing is, though, for me at least, the devil is in the details. And this, as I carried it more, kind of those details kept, jumping out at me, so to speak. Because it feels like somebody who's got the broad strokes of knife design down pat, but is still working on those last 5%. This has lots of little gripes to it. You got these random sharp corners here. You've got, the freaking crud groove, although that's maybe more of an issue of taste than anything. But you have all of the clip positioning ain't quite right. You got a bunch of little issues. And then the biggest one, of course, is this blade in the back. That's just not okay. At any price range, let us... But, the thing is, blade thing aside, these are not a huge problem. But when you spend more time with the knife, they start to add up. And I found myself, as I'm carrying this, thinking, wow, this is a great design, but it needs to mature a little bit. It needs a second round. They need to, go back and do some tweaks, and then this could be an amazing piece. But as it stands, yeah, that's kind of how I ended up feeling. It's like, this is a really nice design, but it needs some tweaks. It needs to be gone back through one more time. And, hopefully the maker will learn from this. Not the maker necessarily. The designer will, pick up on some of the things and make those fixes in the future. But this just feels like a little bit of an immature piece at some level. Most importantly, though, the reason that I can really say that is that the competition at this level is very strong. There are roughly 1 million flipper frame locks like this one available in the $260 price range. And all of them, with their good, their great, the bad, and the ugly. But a lot of them are much more sort of honed designs. They're designs that have had, stood the test of time, that have taken... And so, for a lot of... There are a lot of options there, and many of them I would probably carry over this guy. I mean, even like the clearest option here is like the ZT452, and it feels in many ways a very similar knife, and feels like it doesn't have some of those same issues, although certainly you're not going to get that thin edge here. I mean, there are a lot of options in this price range. I mean, you're drowning in knives at $260. And so, yeah, I'm not so sure I'm a big fan of that. So I do hope that in the future they are able to release an updated version with a couple of these little issues fixed, because that would take this knife absolutely to the next level. But until they do that, I find myself feeling like this is a good piece. And frankly, like I said, if you like it, you're probably going to like it. If the look's appealing to you, those little things will bother you, but it probably won't be a complete deal breaker. But I really do hope they make those tweaks, because I think that could take this little knife from being a novel endeavor to a knife fit for a king. So there you go. Hope this has been interesting to you. Hope this has been interesting to you, and that you have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.